My name is Rowe Miller. I'm working with Canadian Food Grains Bank and Tier Fund UK, based in Tanzania, but working throughout East Africa as an agriculture and livelihoods technical advisor. I've been working in my current capacity and living in Tanzania for almost 10 years now. So when I first began working, it was myself and a woman from Zimbabwe that were supporting different partners of Canadian Food Grains Bank, CFGB. And our whole focus was on conservation agriculture because the CFGB network was trying to encourage partners to use CA, and they wanted a way that they could learn from each other and increase the effectiveness and the spread of the projects that they were implementing. So in 2014, when we began, in Southern Africa, CA was already several years old in terms of programming. In East Africa, it was just beginning. A lot of work to do to convince people that it was a good idea to try it out on a small scale. And that was our approach, was that if farmers could try things on a small scale, and if projects could begin with just a few farmers, once they saw the benefits, then that could grow. And that is, in fact, what happened. We saw a lot of expansion and continue to see lots of expansion through promotion of CA, beginning small scale, but then growing. I think the success has varied according to different locations. In some areas it's just been amazingly successful, and where we are here in Walaita in southern Ethiopia is one of the areas where it's been the most successful. 10 years ago they had about 70 farmers using conservation agriculture. Today Terapeza Development Association, the partner that works here, is working with more than 40,000 farmers who have implemented conservation agriculture. Other places it's been more of a struggle. Around Arusha, where I live, it's been much more difficult to get farmers to accept conservation agriculture. And in that case, one of the biggest factors is that people have a lot of livestock, and they like to use any biomass, any crop residues, weed matter around their farm to feed their animals. And so if you tell them to use that instead to cover their farm fields, they're not very happy to do that. So there have actually been quite a few projects, not CFGB projects, but projects by other organizations around Arusha. But it's just been much more of a challenge. And I would say, as a rule, in the areas where I work, livestock and competition with livestock for biomass and soil cover is one of the biggest limiting factors, one of the biggest challenges we face. Sure. So because soil cover and having enough material for soil cover is such a big challenge, as you say, one of the most effective responses to that is to use cover crops, which are crops that you can grow, and they cover the soil, they help to improve soil fertility, they can conserve soil moisture, reduce erosion. They do many of the same things and even more things than using dry crop residues and mulch. So definitely cover crops are a very big piece of the strategy, particularly the cover crops which stay longer in the field. So some people will use cover crops like common beans, which do cover the soil and produce a little bit of nitrogen, but they don't stay for very long, so they don't benefit the soils nearly as long as as much as cover crops like pigeon peas, lablab, and some of the cowpea varieties that stay longer for even 6 or 8 or 9 months. So definitely cover crops are a big factor. And then as farmers scale up from small plots of CA to larger plots, labor becomes also a limiting factor. And in the early days of promoting conservation agriculture here in East Africa, pretty much all of the farmers implementing CA were using hand hoes for preparing their fields, their CA plots. But as they got larger and larger, that became more and more difficult. So that's why we've been putting a lot more emphasis in the last few years on small-scale mechanization tools that can help reduce the labor demand.